Hi.
It. How are you?
Well, hello. Start from.
Hi, Anna.
All right. So we are both HB5 participants, and we are talking about how Homeward Bound has influenced us so far tonight together, because we were both supposed to post 5 days ago about this question.
5 days ago.
And so we're talking about it today. And I'm Anna Madlener is my name. And I am living in Berlin. I'm also from Berlin originally. I have studied mechanical engineering and robotics in my master's degree, and I'm now working as a marine robotics engineer here in Berlin, working on little marine robots. That's me.
Hi, I'm Natalie Barefoot. I am a lawyer and I work with international oceans issues, looking to increase oceans protections, and I use the lens of marine mammals and sharks to try to do that. Very excited to be talking with Anna about. So how has Homeward Bound influenced you?
Where to begin? I think the biggest influence for me, the biggest graspable influence for me so far is that I don't think that I would be living in Berlin right now if it wasn't for Homeward Bound and if it wasn't for COVID. But but when I was still in Stockholm in the beginning of the year writing my master thesis, I really thought that I was just going to stay in Stockholm or maybe move some other place, but start a PhD and fight my way through. And I always wanted to do a PhD because I thought I had to prove to people that I can do it, because a couple of my really close friends and family had said, you know, we don't really think that a PhD is for you, but we don't really think you'd be happy. And my inner voice was like, I know, I can show you. And I think it was Homeward Bound that, you know, the coaching and the conversations with everyone, and the fact that, you know, being at home during COVID times allowed for a lot of thinking, that I realized that they were right and that I really don't want to do a PhD right now. And the other part, I think, is the biggest part for me has been really understanding or coming more to terms with this notion of being a woman in STEM. Something that I had always experienced a lot in doing the studies, but could never really quite articulate. And it really gave me a lot of strength to find my identity in that kind of, or start to find
it. A journey.
I mean,
always continuing.
How about you?
So at risk of sounding really, cliche, I guess, I would, one of the big things has been hope. With a lot of the work that most of us are doing, we're dealing with issues like, I deal with climate change and species extinction, and sometimes you feel alone in that, or it's really hard, weighty work. And I know a lot of us are women, only women in offices or in structures of businesses and ways of functioning that don't really align with who we are and how we are. And it's just been really nice to have this group of women that you can fall back on and who are in the same space and feeling the same things. I mean, not everyone at the same time, but that you can connect with. And it gives me a lot of hope to see all of us out there doing the good work and trying to make a positive impact in the world, and also facing some of the same really daily obstacles, structural obstacles, patriarchal obstacles, and even just our own minds and how we're functioning, or just thinking through, like hope. I have in my office, when I used to have an office before COVID, I had a huge narwhal, like a huge stuffed narwhal that someone gave me, that I would hug in times of, just despair. Because sometimes when you think about the problems that we're trying to tackle, it can feel hopeless. That, God, how are we going to do this? How are we going to get through?
Yeah.
So that's been really nice.
It's really provided a platform of purpose, I think, for me. Like, I struggle with this every now and then, that I wake up and I think, what am I doing? Like, what am I doing to help this situation? Sure, I'm working on building robots that can, discover our seas and find data and whatnot, but I feel so far from the actual impact that might have. And being with Homeward Bound, with this group of women, you kind of start to hear all those different stories, and you kind of start to hear and see how your work actually then links to someone else's work and on the other side of the planet, because someone that does your job over there has that influence for them. So that's been really, really helpful for me at times when I'm just thinking, what's my point in all of this, and then just the emotional support, I think, is tremendous. It's at times overwhelming when you're flooded with 500 messages the next morning in the WhatsApp group, but just it's so incredible to me, the sheer connection that I have with all of you, with women I've never met in my real life, but yet it feels so so safe, and that's something that I at least have really lacked in university, or in those environments where I'm supposed to be with the people that do the same job as me, or study the same thing as me, is feeling like there's someone around who feels just like you, or who looks like you, or is like you. It's just, it's very empowering. And
that the group and being able to, I feel like we allow each other to test things and try things, and even thoughts, and make mistakes in a really, and everyone says it, safe space, but it is like, we can make mistakes and get back up, and no one thinks any less of us. And I think, for me, I'd probably risk that less in the workspace than here. So, and it's also, learning new things. I love just the diversity in geography, in the different areas of work that people have. So the different perspectives that everyone brings, and the age diversity. Like, I would have never thought about doing this, or doing a video chat. So this is really cool. And so I'm grateful for you, Anna, to like make me a better person and try something new, which is this.
That goes right back. No, but I absolutely agree. That's I feel like it comes in, or it's something that I've only noticed now after a couple of months. And in this regard, I'm actually quite thankful that we have an extra year.
Me too. Me
each other like this before we go to Antarctica, because I mean, just I feel like now after a year we have it down. Like, there's a flow, and there's a rhythm, and things are improving a lot in the communications and in the courses and the classes we take. And you can really see over the course of 1 year how both the leadership team and the participants have evolved due to this whole situation. And it is thanks to this safe space, because I think in the beginning of the year, many of us reacted to many situations, or contributed to situations the way that we were used to, or at least I did. I participated a lot in this first part of the whole COVID situation in ways that I was used to, and getting involved in things. And it really made me kind of reflect if I wanted to do it that way, and if I actually needed to do it that way, and to see, the dynamic and the change in every person's behavior, and in my own behavior especially, is just such a testament, I think, to the whole program. That it's just astonishing that there's 80 women around the world who are so committed to participating in this program for a year, and now it's 2 years, and I think that only improves it, to do it that long. And then recently, as we've been more in touch with also HB alumni, I think that's been very thought-provoking, and stirring up a lot of diverse ideas, and it's confronted me with a lot of problems in the world that I've been kind of blind to as well.
Yeah. No, I agree with everything that you've been saying. I also think that the extra year has been, I'm grateful for it. I think we're going to benefit from it greatly. A lot of people are really connecting even more deeply now, and you can see people who might not have been speaking up now kind of joining the conversation. So yeah, it's going to be, the boat is just going to be unreal when we finally get together in person. Oops. Hi, Kat.
Homeward Bound has taught me a lot of patience and perspective, that sometimes even, when it says this and this has to be done, and this is your homework, it has to be done at that time and that point, it teaches you a lot about reflecting on, okay, do I really need to do that? Like, to what level do I stress myself? And to what level do I need to push through at this point? And what is my personal benefit? And what is my personal well-being? And how does that relate to my work life or my study life, for example? I think the parallel of doing Homeward Bound and writing my thesis in the spring and now working is really like, okay, there's theoretically a real stress and a real push to do all of these things, and I can notice it, influencing my well-being, even though it's supposed to do the opposite. So how about I'm just patient with it? And does that make sense? Like, to just kind of redefine some of those boundaries was really, really helpful for me. And it just kind of showed me that you can be patient with some things. It's like with,
yeah, it's definitely helped me to become more self-aware, and reflective on thinking through the choices I'm making and the actions I'm doing, the why, and then trying to be more mindful about how that is. And it's so funny, like this, my cat, in days gone by, beginning of COVID, I would have never let her join me here. There's just this like, no, this is work, this is that. And so just actually allowing the merging of the merging of kind of who I am and my professional self a little bit more, and being self-aware of that and being accepting of that. And it's been really great to see my personality shine through my work personality more and more. And that's been a lot of fun.
Incredibly important, right? I mean, we've been talking about this a lot in Homeward Bound as well, and especially now in the podcast episode, etc. That really true leadership, which is what we're doing Homeward Bound for a leadership journey, comes from authenticity. And I work so much more productively as well when I know that I can be authentic, and when I know that I can be real about who I am right now, or what is important to me, or how I'm doing. I mentioned this in the podcast episode as well, that sometime in February or so, I really wasn't mentally doing very well during my thesis time, and at some point it was just the best decision to just tell that to my professor, even though I was incredibly scared about it. And it improved the situation for me so much, because he was so understanding, and you know, through knowing how I was doing, could also help me so much better. And that's something that really, actually, I haven't at all been aware about before Homeward Bound, was this whole concept of vulnerability and leadership authenticity and everything like that. And that's not even, there's the part about the professional life that is influenced from it, but also personally, in my personal life, I feel so much more authentic, being able to articulate it like that. So in that way, it really opened a lot of eyes, I guess. Are you able to talk a lot about Homeward Bound, or the learnings that you have from it within your workplace, or is it very disconnected, would you say? Like, do people at your work, for example, know that you participate? And
yeah, they do. And actually, funny enough, I've leaned on some of the connections to talk to people. I actually switched jobs this year in end of April, May.
I remember.
Yeah, and the beautiful thing about my new position in the organization I work with is it is a very authentic organization, and one that supports you to do and be. So it's very consistent with the journey I'm taking with Homeward Bound. And I am so grateful to have all of that, all of these supportive forces in my life to really take the opportunity to expand and be the best that I can be. So yeah, it professionally, it's been practically, like pragmatically, just being able to connect with other humans who are doing the work that I'm doing, and that's been really great. But also it's reinforcing right now, particularly with my new job. And when I started, the position I had previously was much different than this, and it didn't have the same vibe. So I just feel like I'm in a really good space right now, thanks to all of this. It's just all kind of colliding together quite a bit.
Yeah.
What are you looking forward to the most on the boat, like going to Antarctica and coming back? Is there anything in particular that kind of drew you to that part of this journey?
So many things.
It's true.
I mean, I'm expecting to connect to the ocean somehow there, because that's usually what happens to me when I go to places and I see the ocean and I see mountains. It just does something. It stirs something up in me. And I don't know. I'm actually most. I think I'm always most excited about seeing the landscape and just being on the ship and like feeling the technology, but knowing, wow, I get to see this nature. What are you most looking for, or what drew you most to that part of the experience?
I think that was a huge draw of all of this for me. Antarctica is my last continent to visit, so and I couldn't think of a better way to do it than on this program. But it's been funny because I think the benefits that the program has brought to me and is bringing to me has been surprisingly more than I ever could have imagined. But on the boat, I am so looking forward to being at one point, and Carol also, we've talked about this, she's with me, on the high seas. Like never, I mean, I've flown over them, but I've never like been on them. And I think it's going to be so cool to kind of go into
the other day I was I think listening or watching a video from HB1 again about passing the Drake Passage, and I was like, God, I want to be out on the deck when there's 10-meter waves. Like,
but one of the things that I'm excited about hearing, I want to listen to the icebergs. I want to hear them cracking. I'm not sure. I want to see one calving, but the other half of me doesn't want to see it calving because I want them to stay together. And but just that sound. I'm really curious to feel and hear what it sounds like to be there.
I think the whole experience with the light and the sounds must be completely breathtaking. I mean, we just as we are writing, we were just finishing this week our contribution to the Antarcticness book. The whole theme of the chapter from Homeward Bound is about the togetherness that Antarctica instills in us, and we were discussing, in the ones of us from HB5, how just the pure imagination of going to Antarctica has created this togetherness. And you were just saying that, you know, you, from the whole experience before going to Antarctica, you actually got way more out of it than you expected. And I sometimes wonder if, you know, if we could have had the same experience this last year, and if we had the same bond and strength behind our group, if it wasn't about going to Antarctica, you know, I wonder if this whole idea of Homeward Bound could work without going to Antarctica, is what I'm saying. And I think it wouldn't. I think but maybe that's just my naive hope of going to Antarctica. But
that's interesting. I mean, I think in some ways it's at least a commonality or a curiosity that connects us all. And there's also there's the aspect of shared experiences, right? I mean, even though we're not there yet, we're still sharing the experience of preparing for it. And I think that also, you know, connects people and brings them together and really solidifies the network and the bonds. You know, team building, you do an activity together. So ours is going to Antarctica.
No, but I really think, you know, when I started fundraising last year, a lot of questions were raised about, understandably and rightly so, raised about why we're not going to a place that's, you know, less vulnerable to tourism or so, right? And I've struggled with that aspect and that question myself, and I don't think I'll ever quite lose that that part in me that knows, and I shouldn't lose that part that knows that I'm contributing to the problem by going. But I've, you know, contemplated a lot about the idea and the imagination of going there, and it just I think it just wouldn't have the same effect of binding eventually 1,000 women together if it were just another program for women in STEM. And I've had this conversation with someone recently who asked me, who also took part in career building, leadership training for women in STEM. And she said that, you know, over time, the conversations are just dragging on and are kind of staying the same. And it's all about the individual realization of career. And it's not at all in line with, you know, what is going to be good or not good for the planet. And it frustrated her that it's very much like about being the better man in the career, because that's all that you should, you know, become. And all of that kind of makes me think that if we weren't going to Antarctica, if we were just meeting somewhere where for 3 weeks, where people could just, you know, leave and go off, and it just wouldn't have the same effect. And even if we were somewhere in the mountains, it wouldn't have the same effect, because it's just not as painful also to see what's happening.
Yeah, I mean they bring it up, the kind of there's nowhere to hide. You have to face yourself and your community, right? But that point you brought up about the individualism and community, I think that's a really interesting aspect
Mm.
that, to be honest, I hadn't really thought through to the extent that I have since being in Homeward Bound. And we've tackled it, we are tackling it on different levels, right? That whole concept, just recently, the article that came out about women mentors, like it's better to not have you'll be more successful if you don't have a woman mentor.
Yeah.
I'm poorly rephrasing that, but I mean,
No, that's
all of
exactly
that,
right. Yeah.
that conversation and feedback and the individualism and the publisher perish idea, and that's also like a very patriarchal system. I mean,
Oh,
about the individual publisher perish, you're fighting to be the only author and the first author. Like, it doesn't even, I know when I was at a university before I'm at my new job now, and we had sessions on there's disadvantages to not being the sole author on an article, and how that can affect your career, and how to manage that within your career, which is crazy. Like, why it does not even support the way our systems and structures and reward systems and value systems are set up, even on the smallest level, and in science, and in is rewarding individualism and not rewarding community, and the
yeah.
other kind of softer, I hate the word softer too, I don't like that, but
Yeah.
those other more important aspects that we
Social
need
aspects
right
also. Yeah.
now.
Yeah.
Part,
Yeah. I mean, in that
yeah,
article,
we need them now to tackle these issues. Like, we cannot tackle climate change without a community mindset. We just can't.
yeah,
It's
absolutely.
not, it just won't work.
Yeah. Yeah, and the in the article you mentioned, in the Nature article, first of all, that's one of those things, or one of the ways that Homeward Bound has influenced me, is that I hear a lot more about these kind of issues, and I am able to then carry those to the different groups that I've had before, to my friend circle, to my university, etc. And that's something I'm incredibly grateful for. But also, I was so furious with this article, and I just couldn't believe that also the conversations that stemmed from it that I had with a couple, one or two people about it, is that, if the experts say that, if the experts accepted this paper, then you shouldn't question it. And I'm like, well, that's the whole problem, first of all, that the methods were flawed in this paper. And the second part was that, despite criticism from the peer reviewers, it just passed by so many people that mentorship is not defined through co-authorship, first of all. And then to say that not publishing with your mentor after 7 years is a bad thing. That's essentially what the paper said, right? That we only count the impact of those papers that have been published 7 years after a PhD and without the original mentor on it. And why is that a bad thing? I mean,
Yeah.
it's why is it a bad thing? And also, interestingly, I would find it interesting if specifically women are the ones who still do publish with their mentees after 7 years, because they are more community oriented, because they have a larger community mindset. And that's exactly what you're saying. It's so frustrating that there's just this one metric that success is measured by, and impact, and that then it passes by so many people who have the power to say, no, we don't agree with this definition, or we will not publish this paper. It's just very frustrating that a paper like Nature, that has so much influence and is so, what's the word? Renowned,
Mm-hmm.
publishes that. I mean, I understand that there are controversial opinions and that you can interpret data in different ways, but it was just so obviously denying the systemic bias against the women and against women in science and research, and it was just really frustrating.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It is. And it shows, I don't know, I feel like it also kind of opens the wound of that there is this network of what is, and it's so hard to break into it. It's hard to break into it for women, and it's hard to break into it from people of color, people from developing countries where they may not have access to all the resources to publish, and then you're not part of this science that is supposed to influence our world, and it's inadequate. I mean, it's inadequate right now.
Yeah.
Because of this mindset, I think. Well, our 30 minutes has been a lot of
15
fun.
Turn into an hour and 10 minutes. I wonder if you could just like upload it like this and say this is a podcast episode as a video.
That's true. We should just give it to the podcast. Thank you for this. Thank you for suggesting it. Thank you for doing it together. I mean, this is so much more fun than kind of
Isn't
like
it?
figuring it out on your own. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's been really great to spend some time with you too.
Likewise.
Awesome.
Lovely talking to you.
All right. Have a wonderful evening.
Day. Bye.
Bye.